If you didn't mean it, then show them all. Chase the demons out of your head, sun running down the hall. If you listen to what I say, you can beat them all. Spread your wings or learn to fall. All the walls that stand in your way, break down the wall. Spread your wings or learn to fall. It's your life, so you control it. Answer the call. I've been trying to find my way back home. Whoever said that all roads lead to Rome? A helpless soul tied down to a tree. A shadow of time, just let it be. I wanna fix myself. I wanna fix myself. I wanna fix myself. I wanna fix myself. 6 a.m. wake up with a groan. Damage more than just a broken bone. Almost made me feel human. I understand that wasn't the problem, just not part of the plan. All right, everybody. Welcome back, of course, to the Smite Night League. Yet again, bringing you round 2 of So You Think You Can Cast. My name is JudasPriestley, making my entrance into round number 2. But joining me today is the very special, very stationary in the webcam picture, Kaizo. Kaizo, welcome to Smite Night.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I would have the webcam equipped, but it is a legitimate safety hazard because of the flashing that it does. It doesn't really like the light very well, so I thought that this picture of my utter confusion would probably be a pretty good representation of how I'm feeling going into this one as I try to sort through my webcam issues.
I mean, you got to start somewhere, of course. Now, as I have mentioned, this is, of course, the second game of the night being played today. And Kaiser, I'm just going to fill you in a little bit of Smite Night trivia. In our previous game, we actually had a pentakill coming through. But funnily enough, the game that was cast before that also had a pentakill. Can we make it 3 for 3 in Smite Night League history? There's only been 4 pentakills ever, and we've just had 2 of them this weekend. So, I think you're a bit of a numbers guy there, Kaizo, being a chair too. What do you think the odds are of 3 pentakills in back-to-back games?
Well, it's like flipping a coin 1,000 times and then trying to see how many land on heads in a row. Because you always feel like if you get a bunch of tails, it should be a heads almost guaranteed. But that's not how it works. It's always still a 50-50 chance. So as much as I'd like to say that we're guaranteed a pentakill tonight, I don't think that I can say that with very much certainty, just because it happened up until this point. But you never know. We'll have to see. I don't actually know anything, but I wouldn't want to spoil for the audience even if I did know.
Well, it's almost like flipping a coin, Kaizo, but it's rather than seeing how many times it lands on heads, it's almost like seeing how many times the coin lands on its side. And well, I mean, we're getting to that point. There's been some craziness, and Smite Night, I promise you, is always filled with some action. But we are getting into this game very, very quickly, and picks and bans are already underway. Now, it is Captain Tsubasa and his friends taking up the order side, with Hati taking up the chaos side. Now, Kaizo, both of these teams relatively lower down in the power rankings table, in the bottom half, but Hati have actually taken a while to get going. I believe this is actually their first game of the season, but they do carry that air of mystery with them, with having not really played a game. And if you are a team coming into a league, sort of midway through, this is the 5th week, so we are 5 games into the season. How much of a benefit would you say is it being a sort of unknown factor, and how would you counter that out with maybe being a little bit out of practice compared to the other teams?
Well, that's the thing, is that if you don't have any games played, you don't have any experience that the other teams can draw from. Obviously, like you said, with 5 weeks of play already under their belts, you pretty much know how the other team is going to be playing. You can do your research, you can look into it, you can see what they're going to pick. But if you're coming in under the cover of night, this is your first ever game, you don't really get the luxury of being counter banned and counter picked against. You pretty much have to go for what's strong in the meta and then figure it out during the set, because you can end up banning, like, we'll say Lancelot, which they take away in the top 3, and then find out later this guy doesn't even play Lancelot, so that was a wasted ban. So it's going to be interesting to see the adaptations that are made throughout the set, because you don't really have that ahead of time to be put into your plans.
Yeah, and we do now see the round of bans coming through, and Ratatasker being top picked almost certainly for the solo lane. We've seen a lot of that lately. Before we get any further in, though, Kaizo, what do you think is Ratatasker as a whole, and how would you value them as a top pick?
I think they're nuts, dude, and that's not even a play on it being
a bit of a pun.
Like, Ratatosker is truly an abomination of a character right now. The fact that the double flurry acorn gives you all that protection, steal, not shred. I want to make that very clear. You are stealing those protections, and then it gives you percent protections on top of that, which is one of the only ways, actually, I think the only way you can overcap protections in the game, and that's on a character that has a decent laning phase, that has high kill pressure, that has that semi-global ultimate. I think that Ratatosker might be the best solo laner in the game right now.
I'm
really going to struggle to argue against you. But coming up against them, looks like they're going to be putting Tyr in the solo lane. A reasonable pick, has a similar sort of sustained harassment style, just gets in, causes a bit of chaos, and hopefully will get out with their lives. It's something Tyr has done for many, many years now, and Ratatoskr, in this current phase, really starting to come through. But Thor being hovered over into a Pele might be a little bit tough. But here's a god I haven't seen too much of lately, Kaito, Gilgamesh being hovered as well.
Oh, and it's criminal. It truly is. I'll come back to the Thor in a second, but whatever happened that made Gilgamesh just fall off the face of the earth, first of all, I appreciate it because I'm a
Me too.
mid-laner. Second of all, I don't know what happened to this god that people don't love him anymore. He still has the insane pressure. He still has the high burst potential. His ult is still an incredible tool. You can pair it with a Terra or something like that and get just an absurd amount of control and burst damage. But Thor, I'm just not sold on him. They're actually going to consider swapping off and go for the Discordia instead. You're really looking at 4 jungle picks right now. You've got your Pele, your Lancelot, your Nemesis, and your Daji. Those are your core 4 junglers right now. And I feel like anything else you pick below that point is just on a different class. It's 1 tier below those 4.
Yep, I can definitely get behind that. Thor still has a place, can certainly cause some chaos, but really, really struggles when you get into the late game. And I don't even mean like a little bit. Thor can carry you through. It's almost like a bridge pick, right? Has a decent early game, can't really brawl against the opposing strong junglers right now. Speaking of which, Nemesis still overlooked at the moment, so we might see that banned out. But, Thor, has their place, but, I mean, that place is certainly not in this game at this point. Has been overlooked in lieu of the Freya coming through. But Khepri somehow making it through to just before the second phase of bans. And as these bans do come out, what would you say, is the pure top 3 strength out of these 2 compositions?
I would have to give it to, man, this is tough because I do think, like I said, Pele is a top tier jungler right now, and I think that Khepri also falls in that line. Tier is such a question mark for me at all times. I mean, everybody has seen the clip of Deathwalker getting a 4-man fearless, but that's not really your expectation all of the time with this character. It's kind of a hit or miss. It's kind of it depends on the player whether or not you get value out of the pick. So I think that I would have to give it to the Order side in the top 3 because Disco, one of the best mid laners right now, very flexible, gives you a bunch of different options for playstyle. And then Freya, man, what can we say about the ticking time bomb that is this character?
Yeah, Freya, of course, guaranteed to eventually come online. It depends all on your team and how you manage to play the game, whether or not it can have the biggest impact on the game. But if a game goes, 35 minutes, Freya will be there, and Freya will be hitting hard. It's the type of god, not only can you not ignore it at the end of the game, but even throughout the beginning of the game, its conduit gems start now, really, really strong, helps Freya massively through this laning phase. It almost makes it so she doesn't have that massive downside that Freya used to have. But another sort of very late game style hunter, Xbalanque being hired, a god we've seen get very, very popular lately, still being considered though, of course, but in fact, it will get locked in. So what do you think of the matchup there, assumedly in the duo lane between Freya and Xbalanque?
I don't hate it because you're not really going to bully a Freya if she plays correctly. You don't get the luxury of picking something like an on her into her very effectively. I mean, if she gets 1 ring online, she can still fight you anyway, so why not put something else that scales in that lane? I'm a little bit worried for the fact that Xball doesn't have a way to fight back if she does try to play aggressive. Once she gets that 1 ring power spike, Xball doesn't have the best tools to keep himself in the lane, and especially with an Athena now locked in for the Order side to give her a little bit of additional support, they're probably going to be putting this Freya on an island and then suddenly taking a 2v1 against the X-Ball. And that's what I'm really afraid of, is this X-Ball being shouldered out of the lane.
Athena, a god, of course, that sort of shows up in the meta, becomes a bit dominant, and then just disappears again, and seems to be on that upwards trend again. I've seen a little bit more of Athena being picked up, tends to be this sort of bottom pick coming through, and almost certainly in the support role. Had Dizzy a little bit of it in the solo lane. So probably a Achilles in the jungle with Ratatasker in the solo lane. But Baba Yaga comes out to round out the draft for Hati. Now, if, well, I suppose I don't have to say if. Kaiser, you don't know anything about either of these teams. You don't know a lot about the European playstyle, I can assume. But if you're looking at these two drafts just straight up, which one are you preferring?
Man, if I'm going just off of what the compositions here are, I think that that Hati have a very simple composition. They don't have to do too much with what they have. They just have a very backline centered comp. You have tier Pele dive, and then you have the 3v whatever's diving from the side of Tsubasa. But the order side has a much higher skill ceiling with a little bit more execution that goes along with it. And I know it sounds like a meme when I say that they have Athena, Discordia, haha, I get it, funny taunt into the purple carpet. But this comp does really require a little bit more execution than just death ball together and then see what happens. You have to be very dedicated to putting one of these lanes ahead and then feeding off of the pressure that they have. So with best execution, I think that Tsubasa and his friends have the better draft, but assuming all things equal, I think that Hati, the Chaos side, came up with something that is pretty much foolproof.
All right, well, we have discussed, of course, how these drafts might line up against each other, but at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is what happens in the game. So we are now going to be turning over to that game, of course, as we finish loading in and get set up to get started. And, you know, we might have a bit of early back and forth between these two teams. You never really can tell when both sides go for this sort of late game slow lineup, especially in the duo lane. You know, we tend to find that there can be some explosions early on, but if you were to pick a lane, Kaizo, that might result in first blood, which one's you going to go for?
Well, I would not have said solo lane originally because I assumed that Eddie G was going to be on the or excuse me, that Grinkeeper was on the Ratatasker and that was going to be the solo. But now that we see that this Ratatasker is the jungler and it just voided all of the conversation I put out about Ratatasker being such a dominant solo lane presence, you know, Achilles tier, they're gonna get mixed up and they're going to be fighting to the death. I would think that this would be where you're looking because Baba wants to scale, Discordia wants to scale. We already talked about the duo lane to just want to farm it out. You would have to think that you have to be looking on the right side of the map for some of this early aggression.
All right, but we'll do a quick intro of the players before we go. So, for Captain Tsubasa and his friend on the order side, we have Grinkeeper picking up Achilles in the solo lane, Eddie G on Ratatasker in the jungle, Alice Antoinette on Discordia in the middle lane, with Saria on Athena as the support, and Hanula picking up Freya as the hunter. Meanwhile, for the Chaos side, for Hati, we have Tilly GB on tier in the solo lane, Soap Feelin picking up Pele in the jungle, Zenfius picking up Baba Yaga in the middle lane, with a little bit of action this dual lane, as the real nemesis falls very low on this Capri with Albi72 subbing in last minute, by the way, for this game, picking up Jubilanke, and already a bit of warning signs in this dual lane for Hati, Kaizo.
Yeah, and this is going to give me a headache all game, but Nemesis on the Kepri, not playing the Nemesis, but on the support, actually, did what sounds like it should be good against Freya. He tried to stand in front of the Gumball autos level 1 and prevent her from clearing the wave. And if you're just looking at it on paper, it's like, oh, well, she has one wave clear tool, I can stand in front of it. Why would I not do that? And then he got to about 150 HP and remembered, oh yeah, it's going to kill me if I do that. So now Hati are going to be pressured for plausibly the rest of the next minute or two, which could lead into a purple buff invade. It sounds good on paper, but I just don't know if it's really worth ceding all of your lane pressure in order to stand in front of those pulse autos.
Yeah, so already two of the jungle camps in that dual lane going the way of Captain Tsubasa and his friends, with these mid camps being contested, and Zenfius sneaks all of them, all three over the wall. That's a very healthy steal you want to be getting through